PJ's Glass Creations. Join me today and I will show you how to make this adorable bobblehead reindeer. As you can see, his face moves a little bit. It's actually sitting in front of his body. It's not too hard to make, and I will provide the patterns and all the instruction to go with it. Thanks for joining me. Now let's get started. I have pre-cut all of the parts of my body. I figured that you don't need to watch me cut everything. So if you look in the details on this video, you will see the patterns. There's the one pattern that has all the colored pieces. And then this pattern piece has my white pieces, as well as any additional things you might need, like the nuggets for the eyes. There's a nugget for the nose. And you also need small berries for the holly. So I'm going to let you cut those without me showing you how. I'm figuring you know how to cut glass if you're watching this video. To make the eyeballs for my reindeer, I used 2 squares of glass that were each 5/8 of an inch. I nipped off the corners because white sometimes has a problem drawing in and making a really perfectly round circle. That helps it to draw in if you nip off the corners. I did a full fuse in the kiln. And this is what happened. I ended up with 2 nuggets that I'm going to use as eyeballs. And I have some enamel here. I got this from AAE Glass. It's called Easy Fire Enamel. And this dotting tool I got on Amazon. If you just Google dotting or do a search for dotting tools, you'll get that. You don't want too much on your dotting tool. And I'm just going to draw or paint a pupil on his eyeball. And I'm doing it on the edge, not on the very middle of his eyeball. Sometimes when you do that, your enamel will run off a little bit. If it does, when we're done, when it's dry, you'll be able to fix that, and I'll show you that later. Maybe this one needs to be a little bit bigger. And if they're not exactly the same by the time you're done, like I said, you can fix it. I think that's pretty close. So I'm going to put this in the oven at 170 degrees for about 10 minutes, just for that enamel to dry. And it also helps if I can dry it quickly, because then it's not going to have less chance of that running off, of that paint running off. So once we're done here, we'll be ready to assemble our reindeer. Well, my eyeballs are in the oven with the pupils, the enamel for the pupils drying. I'm going to also have to paint enamel on my scarf. It's kind of plain if it's just white. I suppose you could do anything you wanted on it. You could use stringers if you didn't have any enamel. You could use other scraps of glass. You could put little dots and make a little polka dotted scarf. But for this one, I'm going to make it striped. And so here's what it looks like before. And I want these stripes to go top to bottom of the scarf. And I am using, again, that AAE Glass enamel, Easy Fire enamel. I like this one because it is really vivid when it dries. And there are all my scarf parts. I'm going to put these in the oven as well as those pupils of the eyeballs. And there we have our stripes on our scarves. These need to go in the oven as well so that that enamel can dry. And if your lines aren't quite like you like them, you can fix them later, so don't worry about it too much right now. So my scarf pieces and my eyeballs are out of the oven. I'm pretty happy with how the eyeballs came out. This one might be have just a slightly larger pupil. So I'm going to use a toothpick and just kind of scratch off that edge, just to make it a little bit smaller. Make sure it's round. Just around that top part a little bit. And then same with my stripes. I think they look pretty good. This one maybe could be trimmed down a little bit. So as I'm showing you, I'm just going to scrape off the little bit of excess. Clean it up a little bit. It's a really easy way to get nice, crisp lines. And maybe this one needs to be trimmed down a little bit. All right, I think it looks good. Let's get ready to assemble our reindeer. My body looks like he has one big leg, and I want it to look like he has two. And I suppose I could use a stringer for this, but I'm going to use my enamel again. And just draw, or paint actually, paint a line. So he looks like he has two legs. I'm going to put this in the oven for just a couple of minutes to dry, and then we will be finally ready to assemble. So my reindeer body is out of the oven. This will turn out a black, shiny line, not gray and dull like it is. Same with these. It'll be red and shiny. And we are ready to assemble. I am using super glue. Don't use gel. It leaves a mark a lot of times. And the first thing I need to do is I have some 17 gauge high fire wire. This is about a 2-inch piece, and I am going to glue it right here to the bottom of his legs. And the purpose of this is it will be used to mount him onto a disc of wood. And I'm going to cover this with my hooves like this. Next, I need to put his scarf on. So there it goes around his body. This is the part that trails down. The other part that trails down, you might want to pre-assemble this before you put it on to make sure you're getting it right. And finally, the knot. And his body is ready to go. Next, I need to assemble his head. I'm going to assemble his antlers first. And to do this, I'm just going to put the small piece on top of the large piece with just a dot of glue. And by the way, you don't have to use super glue. You could use Elmer's glue. You could do a glass tack glue, whatever works for you. I'm just choosing to use super glue right now because it's a lot quicker. Put his head on top of the antlers. He needs some ears. He needs a nose. And some eyes. You can see how quick this goes together once you finally have all the pieces cut. Some eyebrows add a little bit of expression to him. And some holly just to make him festive. After all, he is for Christmas. Add a little bit of holly berries. Oops. And the last thing we need to do And the reason I didn't do this ahead of time is he needs a mouth. And I wanted to get the rest of his face put together before I did his mouth, just so that I could see what his expression was and where his nose ended up and all of that. You can make whatever mouth you want. I am going to make kind of an asymmetrical mouth. Like that. And just like with the other enamel that we've done, I need to put this in the oven just for a few minutes so that that enamel dries. And then we'll finish assembling, and we're almost done. My reindeer head is out of the oven. We're done putting things in the oven for now. And I need to assemble this. I need to put his head on his body. And because he's a bobblehead, he's going to have a wire that attaches the two pieces. So I have a scrap of clear glass. It's about 1 inch by 1/2 inch. And I am going to put that wire on it. And then I am going to put this way up high on his head. It's going to be in this area here. Actually, before I do that, let's put, I think I just glued that to the paper. I don't want to do that either. I'm going to put a couple of dots of glue on this wire without gluing it to the paper, if I can possibly do it. I think I just glued it to the paper again, just to hold this paper in place. This is thin fire paper. Actually, it's papyrus paper. And I'm going to put this here, and what that will do is act as a barrier between the wire and this part of his head. We don't want that wire adhering to his head. And I'm going to put his head down in here. That piece of clear is actually right up in here. And we have this paper acting as the barrier between the rest of the wire and his head. I have another clear piece. I'm going to put my wire, the bottom part of my wire, on top of that. And I'm going to adhere it to the top part of his body. And it looks kind of weird because it looks like his head is floating above his body. But once we bend the wire, that will give him the ability to wobble his head a little bit and give him that true bobblehead look. So this is off for a tack fuse. And after that, I'll show you how to bend the wire to make him into a bobblehead and how to finish him up. My bobblehead is out of the kiln, and I have cleaned up the paper that was here that was acting as a placeholder, and you can see that now this wire is not attached to the back of his head, just this part that had the wire between it. And to get him in the right shape, I am going to bend his head down. This wire right on top of his body, I'm going to bend it down. And then I'm going at the same time bend his head up. And it might take a little trial and error to get it exactly where you want it, but you can see here I came down from his body and then bent his head up. I'm going to give it a little squish. You can see the zigzag. And here is my cute little bobblehead reindeer. And this wire down here, I have trimmed it just a little bit, and I have a wooden disc here. I got these at Michael's. I think they're meant for ornaments because there's a hole here. I think that's meant for hanging, but we're not going to use that. We're going to just ignore that. I'm going to make sure it's in the back. And I'm going to put a little E6000 glue on my wire. Insert my wire in the hole. And it's important that you test it first. I've already tested this one. because you want his feet on the ground. You don't want him floating because the wire is too long for your hole that you have there. And it looks like it's good. And just to add a little bit of extra security, I'm actually going to add a little bit of glue under his feet. The wire makes it so that you can kind of bend him, get him where you want him while he's drying. Make sure he stands up. And the glue under his feet will make him more sturdy. So here is my finished product. I think he's pretty cute. His head is kind of wiggly if you touch it. All right. Let's start crafting for Christmas. Here it's summertime still, but I have to start now for Christmas. Thanks for joining me. My reindeer bobblehead is done. I think he's pretty cute. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You can also join me on Facebook at PJ's Glass Creations, or you can find me on Etsy, pjsglasscreations.etsy.com. And if you liked this video, you can also look for my YouTube video for the bobblehead Santa. I think he's really cute too. Let's get ready for Christmas now.